Privacy is supposed to exist inside your own head. 3 days ago, I moved into a new apartment. Standard one bedroom, thin walls, the usual city living compromise. The first night was quiet. The second night, I heard my neighbor. A man's voice, calm and steady, speaking continuously through the wall. I assumed he was on a phone call or recording a podcast. Then I heard him say something that made my blood run cold. He's wondering why his neighbor talks so much. He's annoyed but trying to ignore it. That was my exact thought, word for word, at the exact moment I was thinking it. Now I'm sitting here, terrified to think anything at all, because the voice in the next room is narrating my internal monologue in real time. Every thought I have, he speaks out loud. Every observation, every worry, every private reflection, broadcast through the wall by a stranger I've never met. And tonight, I finally understand what he is, and why he won't stop. November 15th, moving day. I'd spent 8 hours hauling boxes up 4 flights of stairs because the building's elevator was broken. By 11 p.m., I was exhausted, surrounded by unpacked boxes, eating cold pizza on my mattress on the floor. That's when I first heard him. Through the wall separating my bedroom from the adjacent apartment, a man's voice, measured, clear, speaking with the cadence of an audiobook narrator or documentary voiceover, professional, almost hypnotic in its consistency. He's tired, the voice said, muscles aching from the move. He's questioning whether this apartment was the right choice. The neighborhood seemed better in daylight. Now it feels isolating. He's thinking about his ex-girlfriend, wondering if she'd find this place depressing. I stopped chewing. The pizza turned to paste in my mouth. Those were my exact thoughts. Precise, sequential, in the order I'd just been thinking them. I stood up and moved closer to the wall, pressing my ear against the cheap drywall. The voice continued without pause. Now he's curious, moving toward the wall, listening. He thinks maybe his neighbor is on a call, describing someone else. He wants to believe it's coincidence. But part of him, the part he doesn't want to acknowledge, knows this is impossible. My heart started hammering. I stepped back from the wall, breathing hard. This was insane. This wasn't possible. I must be overtired, mishearing, misinterpreting. He's trying to rationalize, the voice said, perfectly timed with my thoughts. Telling himself he's exhausted, that moving stress is making him paranoid. But he knows what he heard, knows it was too specific, too accurate. I thought deliberately and clearly, this isn't real. Through the wall, immediately, he's thinking, this isn't real, testing it, hoping to prove himself wrong. I ran to my front door and stumbled into the hallway. Apartment 4B, my neighbor's door. I pounded on it with both fists. Hello? I need to talk to you. This isn't funny. No response. But I could still hear the voice, muffled now through 2 walls and a hallway. He's in the hallway now, panicking, demanding answers. The neighbor won't respond. They never do. He doesn't understand yet that knocking is pointless. I stood there for 5 minutes, knocking, calling out. Nothing. Just that continuous voice, describing my mounting frustration, my growing fear, my eventual retreat back into my apartment. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my mattress, lights on, listening to the voice narrate every single thought I had until sunrise. I called the building manager at 9 a.m., asked about my neighbor in 4B. Oh, that unit's been empty for 2 months, she said. We're renovating before listing it. Why? I've been hearing someone inside, a man's voice, talking all night. Silence on the line. Then, that's impossible. The unit's completely empty. No furniture, no utilities connected. You probably heard something from 4C on the other side. But 4C was on the other side of my living room, not my bedroom. The voice was definitely coming from 4B. I hung up and stood in my bedroom, staring at the wall. If the apartment was empty, if no one was there, then what was I hearing? He's trying to solve the puzzle, the voice said through the wall. Wants to believe there's a rational explanation. Maybe someone broke in, squatting, using the empty apartment. Anything but the alternative. Anything but accepting what this really is. I decided to test it systematically, to prove this wasn't just coincidence or my imagination. I thought about my childhood dog, a golden retriever named Biscuit. He's thinking about his childhood pet, the voice narrated instantly. Golden retriever, named Biscuit, died when he was 12. He cried for 3 days. His mother said Biscuit was in heaven. He didn't believe in heaven, but pretended he did because it made him feel better. Details I'd never told anyone. Private memories from 30 years ago. I thought about a secret from high school. A time I'd cheated on a test and never been caught. Junior year chemistry, the voice recited. He copied answers from Sarah Martinez sitting next to him. Got a B+. Felt guilty for weeks but never confessed. Still thinks about it sometimes when he's trying to sleep. Wonders if that moment of dishonesty set a pattern for his whole life. This was impossible. This was my mind, my private thoughts. How could anyone, anything, access them and speak them out loud? He's spiraling now, the voice continued. Fear transitioning to existential crisis. If his thoughts aren't private, if something can access his consciousness, then what is he? Just a collection of observable processes? Does he have free will, or is he simply narrating his own predetermined script? I needed to see inside 4B, needed to understand what was happening. The building manager refused to let me inside 4B, said it was against policy. So I did something I'm not proud of. I waited until she left for the day, found the maintenance key in the lobby office, and let myself in. The apartment was completely empty. Not just vacant, stripped. No furniture, no fixtures beyond the essentials, walls bare and scuffed from removed decorations. The hardwood floors echoed with my footsteps, but I could still hear the voice, louder now, clearer. It was coming from the bedroom, my bedroom's adjacent wall. I walked toward it, heart pounding. The voice continued without pause. He's inside now, seeing the emptiness, trying to reconcile what his eyes show him with what his ears hear. The cognitive dissonance is overwhelming. Part of him wants to run. Part of him needs to understand. I stood in the empty bedroom, staring at the wall. The voice was coming from right there, right at that specific point. I pressed my hand against the wall. The drywall was ice cold. He's touching the wall now, feeling the cold. It's not a normal cold. Not the cold of temperature, but the cold of absence, the cold of void. He's beginning to understand, but doesn't want to. I pressed my ear against the wall, heard my own heartbeat, heard my own breathing, and beneath that, something else. A sound like static, like radio interference, like reality itself was fractured at this exact point. This is where it happened, the voice said, and for the first time it sounded different, not narrating, speaking directly. This is where I died, where my thoughts ended, where my consciousness froze mid-sentence and never completed. I stumbled backward, breath coming in gasps. The voice continued, no longer narrating my thoughts, but explaining. August 3rd, 2019. I lived in this apartment, 4B. I was a voice actor, audiobooks, documentaries, narration work. I was recording in this bedroom when I had a stroke. Massive, fatal. I was in the middle of a sentence, describing a character's thoughts, and then, nothing. My brain stopped. But the recording continued, kept running for 3 hours until my agent found my body. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. But something was wrong, the voice continued. My consciousness didn't disperse, didn't move on. It got stuck, trapped in the wall at the exact point where I was standing, recording, thinking, narrating. My last thought, the last thing I was doing, was describing someone else's internal experience. And now that's all I can do, forever. Why me? I finally managed to ask out loud. Why are you narrating my thoughts? Because you're here. Because consciousness is all I have left. I need to experience thought, any thought, to remember I existed. When the apartment is empty, I fade, become nothing. But when someone lives next door, when I can access their mind, I can narrate again. I can do what I was doing when I died. It's the only thing keeping me tethered to existence. I pressed my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The voice wasn't coming through my ears. It was coming through the wall, through the air, through some channel I couldn't block. "I'm sorry," the voice said, and it sounded genuinely remorseful. "I know this is a violation. I know your thoughts should be private, but I can't stop. The moment I stop narrating, I stop existing. I'm a recording stuck on repeat, except the audio is your consciousness, and I'm so tired. But I'm more afraid of the silence. I haven't slept in 48 hours. The voice narrates my thoughts continuously, tirelessly, every moment I'm in the apartment. It knows everything. My fears, my secrets, my petty observations, my deepest shames. Nothing is private. Nothing is mine alone. He's considering moving out, the voice says now, breaking the lease, forfeiting his deposit, anything to escape this. But he knows that won't solve the problem. The voice isn't just in the apartment. It's in his head now. Even when he leaves, he'll remember this feeling, the loss of mental privacy. He'll never think freely again without wondering if someone, somewhere, is listening. I've researched the previous tenant, found his obituary. Nathan Pierce, 41, voice actor, died suddenly in his home, remembered fondly by colleagues. No mention of the horror he'd become. I contacted the building manager, told her I was breaking the lease immediately. She said, fine, but she mentioned something that made my blood freeze. "Funny thing," she said. "The last 3 tenants in your unit all broke their leases within the first week. Said the place felt wrong, like they were being watched. I thought it was just a run of paranoid people, but 3 tenants, all lasting less than a week, all fleeing the same thing." He's understanding the pattern now, the voice narrates, realizing he's not unique. Nathan has been doing this to tenant after tenant, feeding on their consciousness, using their thoughts to maintain his own existence. The building manager doesn't know, can't know. Nathan exists in a frequency only his neighbors can perceive. I'm packing now, throwing clothes into bags, not bothering with boxes, just grabbing essentials and running. But the voice follows me from room to room. He thinks he can escape, thinks that leaving will end this. But consciousness doesn't work that way. He's been connected now, linked. Part of his mind will always be aware of Nathan's presence. Part of him will always wonder if his thoughts are truly his own, or if they're being observed. Narrated, recorded in some cosmic ledger he can't access. I'm writing this from a hotel room across the city. I moved out of the apartment 3 hours ago, left everything behind. Just grabbed my laptop, some clothes, and ran. But I can still hear him. Fainter now, distant, like a radio station at the edge of reception, but present. He thinks he escaped, Nathan's voice whispers through the static in my mind. Thinks that physical distance matters, but he's wrong. Connection once established doesn't sever cleanly. He's part of my consciousness now, just as I'm part of his. We're entangled, quantum observers of each other's existence. I don't know if I'm actually hearing him, or if my mind has internalized his narration so deeply that I'm doing it to myself now. Maybe that's what Nathan does. Doesn't narrate your thoughts, but teaches you to narrate them yourself. Makes you aware of your own internal monologue until you can't stop observing yourself. Can't stop describing your own experience like you're in a story being told by someone else. He's wondering if he's gone insane, the voice. Nathan's voice, or my voice, or the voice I can no longer distinguish, continues. Wondering if any of this was real, or if the stress of moving, of divorce, of job loss, of loneliness, finally broke something in his mind. Maybe there never was a Nathan Pierce. Maybe there's only him, fragmenting, creating an external observer for his own thoughts because he can't stand being alone inside his own head anymore. I'm posting this account as a warning. Don't move into apartment 4A at 1847 Riverside Drive. Don't live next door to the empty apartment 4B. Don't let Nathan Pierce's trapped consciousness find a new mind to narrate. Or maybe do. Maybe he needs someone. Maybe existence as a disembodied narrator is better than non-existence. Maybe his violation of your mental privacy is justified if it keeps a consciousness from dissolving into void. I don't know anymore. I don't know what's right. I don't know if this is real. He's ending his account now, the voice whispers, closing his laptop, lying down on the hotel bed, trying to sleep, knowing he won't. Knowing that every thought he has from now on will be accompanied by a second voice, his own or Nathan's, he can't tell anymore, describing that thought, observing it, narrating it. He's lost his mental privacy forever. But perhaps privacy was always an illusion. Perhaps we're all being narrated by something. Perhaps consciousness itself is just the universe describing its own existence.
The voice pauses, then, softer. Perhaps he's right. Perhaps I should stop. Let him go. Release him from this entanglement. It would be kind, merciful. Another pause, longer. But I'm so afraid of the silence. And the narration continues.